Kia ora, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of the Drop Clutch with me, Ricky V. In this series, I'm interviewing as many metal drummers from around New Zealand as I can get to, just to see if I can get an insight into what makes these guys and girls tick. Tonight is a very special episode for me. This guy was a huge influence when I was just starting in the metal scene and starting to perform in bands. This guy was already fairly well established, and just his style had a huge influence on me back in the day. So I'm very excited, very nervous, as he and I have just found out. It is the one, the only Danile Ashcroft, or Smashcroft. Hey, Smashcroft, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. Very well, thank you.
I am glad to hear that. So after that introduction, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about the bands that you were in. Obviously, you're doing other things now, but tell us about the bands that you were in.
Yeah, so people in the heavy metal community will know me best for my work with Defetus and my band Cephalopod. Also, my solo project, which was called Crackpot Theory back in the day, which was something that I did on my own, played all the instruments and all that sort of thing. But I think overall, Cephalopod was the thing I made my main print on. So. Plus, sure. I've probably been in about 100 bands over the last 15 years, but we want to talk about all that. Just we'll keep it metal for tonight, I think.
Yeah. Yes, I do remember it got to a point a couple of years ago where you actually put it out there like, hey guys, stop asking me to be in bands. I've got too much shit going on. Going back to Defetus and Cephalopod, tell us a little bit about how you got started in those bands, how you started those bands, because I believe you were the first drummer for Defetus.
No,
you weren't.
I've never been an original member of any band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, basically, early on in my music, I guess my music career, it was essentially a snowball effect. So I was very much a yes man from the start, and I was playing with whoever, doing whatever I could, and I was playing with all these people from various backgrounds, age groups, musical backgrounds, and eventually I joined a pop punk band. And I was able to channel my inner Travis Barker, which was a bit of a childhood dream. And we did a battle of the bands, and we were pretty bad, so we didn't make the first heat. But luckily, there was another band in the competition that made it to the finals, whose drummer pulled out. So someone at the bar saw me play and recommended to this guy that I could fill in, and that guy was Grizzly, Aaron Smith. So I played with his blues band, and then later that turned into him asking me to play with his metal band at the time, Defetus. And that was my first time playing drums really in a metal band that was established and that had gigs. And a few months down the track, Cephalopod was looking for a drummer, and Andy Young, who I knew from my Crackpot Theory days, asked if I'd be interested in joining, and messaged KK at the time, and that's kind of how all that sort of happened. So it was essentially just me putting myself out there in the scene and doing whatever I can and getting as much mileage and musical experience as I could get. So I was very well prepared for those kind of bigger roles as a drummer.
Sure. My first ever experience with the Smashcroft show was actually Crackpot Theory. It was at a Jammin' for Jethro.
Yes.
I forget what the bar was, some bar in Palmy. And you were in, I feel like it was white overalls, and half of you was wrapped in glad wrap, and you had a big fuck off piercing through your nose.
Yep.
And it was... It stood out. It stood out. Let me tell you that much, bro. So tell us, man, what got you started drumming?
It sort of happened biologically. I'm from a very conservative family and not musical whatsoever, so music was never an option. It was never part of our family life, but I was lucky enough to have older sisters. When they became teenagers, they started getting into music, and this was around 1999. So of course, bands like Blink-182, Chili Peppers, No Doubt, all that sort of stuff was being played on TV. And as soon as I saw that sort of stuff and noticed that the drummers all had their shirts off, had the tattoos and the piercings, and it just blew my mind. And I knew straight away that was me. And I literally woke up one day and I knew that was my life and my lifestyle. And that's been my lifestyle ever since, really. It just happened overnight. And I just took a liking to the drums because I just loved the sheer joy that those drummers portrayed.
Sure.
Playing the instrument, and like I say, it's biological. It's just who I am. Yeah, it was never a decision. It just happened.
Sure. And how old were you when you started playing?
9.
No,
9 years old.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody that I've interviewed so far seems to have started really young. I didn't start drumming until I was 19. And so,
wow.
Yeah. I've been playing catch up, and obviously my son has been playing since he was about 2, so he's had a pretty good head start. But just makes me think about all those years that I missed out on, which that's another story for another time. Can you tell us? So obviously you mentioned Chili Peppers and Travis Barker, of course. Who are some of your favorite drummers?
So. In regards to overall, I'm into a pretty wide range. I have 2 separate lists when it comes to music. So my influences and who's inspired and influenced my playing from a creative point of view. And then there's drummers and musicians that I like to listen to leisurely. So the leisure stuff is pretty far from metal. I'm really into funk and hip hop and alternative music, but something about heavy metal, I've always been attracted to the speed and the power and the intensity. From the heavy metal side of things, my biggest influences initially were probably Sam Shepard from 8 Foot Sativa, because at that time this was pre-YouTube and social media, so I didn't have a lot of access. But I remember 8 Foot Sativa had pretty steady rotation on C4 and Music TV, so it was pretty easy to listen to them and obtain their albums and stuff. Another band and another drummer that I fell in love with was Raymond Herrera from Fear Factory.
Fuck yeah!
And what drew me to him was basically the double bass. That was my first time really hearing double bass. And I think I was about 14 at the time, so I'd already been playing drums for a few years. And I had an older sister that had a boyfriend at the time that was really into metal, and he burnt me all these CDs and all that sort of thing. So, and just the double bass patterns, it was just something I was naturally drawn to. I was really fascinated about with it, and that's something that I've applied to my drumming even today. That strong emphasis on rhythm and being creative with your rhythm as well.
And power. He is
very much so.
Power machine, that guy.
Yeah. Very much so. Those are my early influences. Later on down the track, when I started playing in bands, I had to reference basically what my bandmates were aspiring to. And I think as a drummer, I had to really open up my palette, because throughout the years I've played with all sorts of people, all these amazing musicians, and Cephalopod, for example, was really unique in itself. So I had to really get inside the other band members' minds and figure out what they were into, and I discovered some really, really great drummers. With Defetus, I could channel that Sam Shepard influence. But other drummers like Gene Hoglan, for example, Martin Marthas Skrupka, who's the drummer for Cradle of Filth at the moment, very big influence. And let me think, who else? Pretty much those are the main guys. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head at the moment, but there are probably heaps of drummers out there that I really love.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, Dave Lombardo, of course.
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Anyone who basically does double kick is I'm a fan of. So.
sure. Well, can you tell us who your favorite drummer that you've seen live is? Who's the guy that you've seen and you've just been like that?
I can't actually remember the band name.
That's a good start.
It's on the tip of my tongue. But the drummer, I can't remember his last name, but his first name was Flo.
Mornier,
Yeah, they're from
Cryptopsy.
Cryptopsy, yes.
Yeah.
So I was the drum tech for that gig
Oh,
when
no
they
shit.
played. Yeah, when they played at Valhalla.
Yeah.
So I was the drum tech for that gig, and Flo was such a nice person to deal with. He was really easygoing, and I did some drum tech work prior to that with Ailstorm,
Okay.
and that drummer he was pretty insular, and I must have just been tired from the travel, or he wasn't very communicative, and that was a hard job. But Flo just took me in with open arms, and he was just chatting away to me the whole night, and I loved his drumming, and in fact, it was the sound check that did it for me because he wasn't blasting and doing all this double kick stuff. He was busting out all the gospel chops and all this other shit, man. He's just got awesome feel and awesome accentuation in his dynamics. Yeah, very well practiced musician. Yeah,
Fuck
very
yeah.
much so. Yeah.
He's also very unique, hey? Like his blast beats, even his trad
Mm.
blasts are not trad blasts. They're a little bit off. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And ridiculous to see live. Fuck yeah. Um, oh, wow. If we, I mean, obviously you mentioned, uh, what it was like in Defetus, but how would you describe your drumming style for Cephalopod?
That pretty undescribable. I really don't know, to be honest, because Liam Cody, the bass player, had such a unique style. And normally when I join these bands, I kind of reference them to something else. So I have an idea or a gauge of what kind of voicing in the drums they might want, what kind of feel and all that sort of thing. Everything from the tuning. Um, but with Cephalopod, Liam had this really sporadic approach to playing. He was very jazz influenced. Everything was an odd time signature. Every riff was an odd time signature. So my way of thinking with that was basically to accentuate those bass parts and try and make them as musical as possible, whilst creating consistent pulse. So I didn't do a lot in terms of improvisation at the live shows. Everything I did was very, very exact and just maintaining and trying to keep that together. But he allowed me a lot of room to accentuate and play dynamically. And I think I came up with some pretty creative parts for
Fuck
that
yeah.
band. But as far as influence or anything like that, I'd probably say the closest thing would be probably Gene Hoglan and what he was doing with Death,
Sure.
which was a bit more hand orientated as opposed to foot orientated. Because when you're playing in different time signatures, you can't always do, 16th or 32nd notes on the kick drum just throughout. So it was more handwork than footwork with Cephalopod. So I think the stuff that I'd probably say Gene Hoglan was probably the biggest influence and that sort of thing. But I really just had to kind of get behind Liam's mind really and try and, like I say, make his parts as musical as possible and
Sure.
and enjoyable and accessible for the listener as well. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to take a minute to give some props to Liam. Easily one of the best bass players in New Zealand. He just phenomenal. Have you had a chance to see him with Order of Diptera yet?
I haven't.
Oh,
I haven't, to be honest. Yeah,
oh,
I think I saw some playthrough videos not long ago,
yep.
and I have no doubt he's kicking ass with that shit, man. Because not only is he an incredible player, but he's an incredible performer as well. The guy is quite tall. I think he's
Oh,
quite towering, quite a big guy. I don't know if he's still playing the 7-string bass. Is he still playing the 7-string?
oh,
I think he's playing 7-string and Cephalopod. He might be playing the 6-string now. But So he's got this huge bass. He's a big guy. He's got this incredible, strong right hand, and he plays with such confidence and power. And I remember seeing Cephalopod before I joined the band, and Liam was straight away the first thing I saw, and I knew, I was, fuck man, that could be someone that I could partner with rhythmically and really, be compatible with my playing style. And as fate would have it, I did join the band, and
Yeah. Cephalopod really was the tale of two halves. There was the, KK and Andy prior, yes. And then there was you and Naz. Was it?
Nag.
Yeah,
Nag. Yeah, we had Brett Howard as well play guitar, I think for about a year. I joined when KK was still in the band, so we were playing the original material from the first album for about a year or so. That was actually my favorite era, Cephalopod, because I loved the song so much. In fact, KK, out of all the many guitar players I've played with, I think he's probably the best rhythm guitar player that I've played music with, just because he's so intuitive and he has great technique, and he's very good at writing really catchy riffs. And so I thoroughly enjoyed learning those songs and playing them. When he left the band, Liam and I sort of took over the creative duties, and then it was kind of the other side of the coin, because all of a sudden, because Liam and I were the new guys in the band when I joined, then all of a sudden we're the guys that are dictating everything and writing all the new material. So it was almost like a completely different band in a way. And we were very fortunate enough to have very talented guitar players in the band, Brett Howard, and especially Nag. Nag added heaviness to the band and a tightness to the band that was really, really unmatched and really, really impressive. And I couldn't believe how quickly he learned everything. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Very, very talented and a great guy. Yeah.
Sure. Can you tell us what because you guys obviously released an album with Cephalopod. Can you tell us what the writing process was like for that?
So at the time we were writing, it was just Liam and I in the band with Lee. Basically, Liam would come to me with probably about 12 or 13 bass parts that he had written. And we're talking like just crazy shit that just didn't make any fucking sense. He didn't really know what time, but all he knew, because he's very jazz and theory focused, so he knew what he thought very thoroughly about the keys and all that sort of stuff, and the phrasing, the way everything was, and so he would come up with these bass lines. I would try my best to come up with drum parts for them, and I'd always be counting in my head and would figure out the time signatures together. And then we would work out each bass line that he had written. So we probably had about 10 bass lines at our disposal with a drum part associated with it. And then the three of us would literally just kind of put it into some kind of order. We might repeat one or the two of the riffs somewhere along the line. And then that was pretty much it. That was how we wrote the songs. There was one song, 8 Brain, which is my favorite song from Cephalopod. I think it was a series of maybe 7 different parts. And once we got to the 7th part, we basically reversed. So we went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we went 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, was it 8 Brain? Oh, it might have been a different song, but that's how we did it.
Okay.
And yeah, man, far out. What a incredible way of doing it. Pretty unique for a metal band, where the bass and the drums are composing the material. Yeah, it was a unique experience, and it was pretty different, and it just gave the bass a little bit more purpose, because we didn't have any guitar at that point. So the bass really had to be the lead instrument, and I think that's why the bass was so prominent and such an important part of the overall Cephalopod sound. It wasn't just a accompaniment or holding the backbone. It was very much a driving force, not only rhythmically but melodically as well.
Sure. Is there a specific technique? Obviously, you play a number of instruments, but with the drums, is there a specific technique that you are practicing or working on improving at the moment?
At the moment, I'm doing a lot of work with. I'm basically just a ringer at the moment, so I fill in and play with. I've got about 5 different groups, and especially this time of year, people can't make it because they're on holiday or whatever, sick, or they're at a wedding or something. So I get called in to fill in with these bands. So not so much any techniques that I'm working on, but I have to play all these different styles of music all the time. So something that's really important to me is how quickly I can learn songs, and and how I can work that out in my head, and all that stuff is sort of a technique in itself. As far as like physical techniques on the drums, I'm really just working on being more myself, because I spent the last few years doing mostly cover band, mostly doing theatre, orchestral, brass band, all that sort of thing, where I'm replicating something exact. I've lost a bit of creativity and a bit of spark. And I'm almost too disciplined. So something I'm working on now is actually going back to feeling a bit more free, and relearning some of the old techniques and the old tricks that I used to do on the kit. But that's pretty much it. I don't really worry too much about technique in general. For me, it's more of a feel.
Sure.
It's more, yeah, it's more of a feel. And with the metal stuff, for me, it was more intensity and power and consistency. Consistency with especially with my blast beats and my double kick and my velocity and my dynamics. And hence, I think that's why people started calling me Smashcroft, because I could handle it all the way through.
Fucking Smashcroft.
I remember I did a gig at Valhalla, and I was playing with a band called Fallen. You might remember Fallen.
Fuck yeah, I do.
So those guys were really into the early '90s death metal, brutal death metal, like the Suffocation and all that sort of shit. And I got really into Mike Smith during that time too. He's a drummer I forgot to mention before, Mike Smith. Anywho, that was all traditional sort of blast beats and all that sort of stuff. But I remember the sound guy comes up to me afterwards, and he goes, "Man, you're pretty much the only drummer whose snare drum I have to turn down when they blast. Everyone else, I have to turn the thing up. But that was something I prided myself on. Was really that feel, intensity, and making sure the audience felt it too. And I think I had probably natural technique. I think I did a bit of damage to my body around that time, but my focus was more on feel and accentuating what the music should be doing to the audience.
Sure.
That middle, it's that middle, it's that power, intensity, what drew me in the first place.
Absolutely. Speaking of going back, is there any plans for any more Crackpot Theory stuff? I know you released a rap album recently.
Yeah. So what happened was, about 10 years ago, I released an album called Flippity Floppity Fluke, and I had a show associated with that to promote it, which was basically me playing drums live. Just all the guitars were pre-recorded, and it was more of a physical drum show. I did some vocals, but that was for me the end goal. That was the peak. I achieved everything I wanted to achieve. After that, I switched it up and I started releasing music under my own name, and that's more. I just do whatever the hell I want. I released a musical opera with Mike Jackies.
Yep.
I just composed it, played all the piano and all that sort of thing. And then since then, I've done lots of acoustic. I've done mostly classical music since then. But yes, I did release a hip hop album recently, with a little bit of crossover in there. There's a little bit of Faith No More in there, a little bit of heavy metal guitar and all that sort of thing. As far as Crackpot, I probably I would love to do something a bit more orchestral with the metal stuff in there. Maybe something similar to old school Cradle of Filth or Jimmy
Hmm.
Booger or something like that. But I'm not sure if I have the chops for that sort of thing anymore all the time. But it's something I'd love to do. Really, it's something I'd love to do. It's probably, as far as heavy metal goes, that's my favorite subgenre. Is the yeah, like the orchestral, the extreme metal sort of stuff. Yeah, that's my favorite.
Nice. Nice. Cool. So now we're going to play a game called First, Last, Best, Worst. So I want you to
Yep.
tell us about the first show that you ever played. The last, let's, instead of the last gig that you played, let's make it the last metal gig that you played.
Yep.
The best show that you've ever played, and then the worst show that you've ever played. And that can be the worst show, that can be the worst, moment on stage, that can be the funniest moment on stage, something like that. But let's start off with the first show that you ever played.
First heavy metal show or just show in general?
Show in general.
Okay. So my first show in general, I was playing bass. Me and my best friends from high school, we had a band, and all my friends were drummers. So that's kind of why I picked up the bass. Also because I kind of knew that I wanted to write songs as well. So anyway, we had about 4 songs, and we were basically just ripping off old school Chili Peppers. Like I'm talking like the 80s, early 80s sort of stuff that they were doing. So no one really got what the fuck it was, and it was pretty bad. And I couldn't really slap bass, but I certainly tried. But it was incredibly fun and innocent time of my life. And the drummer Elliot Brown, one of my best friends, he stopped playing drums after high school, but to this day he's probably still one of the best drummers I've played with. Um, and I think just because we had such an amazing connection.
Sure.
The the best show that I've ever played.
Uh, Before that, what was the last metal show that you played?
Oh, the last metal show. So get this, you may not be aware of this, but once a year for the last few years, Defetus gets together for a reunion show.
Really?
Yeah, this year. So we've done it last couple of years. In the middle of the year, we just get together for a couple of weeks, rehearse. We just play the classics, and we play a show. And it's badass, man, because it's the peak Defetus lineup too. Damo Blood on the bass.
Whoa! Fuck yeah!
Yeah, and Mike Jackie's on vocals.
Fuck yeah! Despise the offended. Damo Blood.
Yeah, definitely.
Fuck yeah!
And I know we're talking about Liam before, but Damo Blood is another bass player I have to give massive credit to, because man,
Fuck yeah!
is he awesome. Not only his bass playing, but just his personality in general, and such a contrast from Liam. But God, he's just got such a warmth and density, and he's super fast with his fingers. He doesn't look, man, is he fast, and he's playing every single note I'm playing on the bass drum. He's a wicked bass player. Yeah. So that was the last one I did. It was last year. I think it was around maybe August. With Defetus, and yeah, it's great getting back with the fellas, just for a one-off. Sure. I wouldn't mind doing it a little bit more, but yeah, it's cool because we're all dads now in the band too.
Yeah.
All of us, we're all parents, so we all kind of understand each other a little bit better now. But yeah, I'd love to do that a little bit more.
Awesome.
The worst show,
best show,
or the best show? Yeah, cool. The best show was probably the first show I ever did with Cephalopod. It was opening for Beast Wars.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, at the Royal Hotel. So I had another gig at the Regent on Broadway earlier that night. That was, I think it would probably be like a 3-hour concert. It was just like I was backing a singer, some old guy. I think his name was Ray Wolf or something. Old school singer from probably like the 60s or 70s. So we're talking like rockabilly and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I do the show, and I race to the Royal, I've got my cymbals like in my arms. I got someone carrying my drum rack for me, and I get there with about 10 minutes to spare. I'm in this fucking suit. I get on stage, and we just lay into it. And no one at that point had seen me play the drums to that extremity. Like they haven't. I'd only done maybe like a few months with Defetus. But it was. I remember it was raining outside, so all my cymbals were soaking wet. We're in this fucking. I'm in this
No.
fucking suit, and we open up, and the first song just has these hits on the cymbals, right? It's, and because the cymbals are wet, all the water splashes up in the light, and it just looked fucking cool, man. It just looked great, and that was probably the funnest show I've done because of just the reaction from the crowd.
Sure.
And just that was really the first time I felt I was playing with musicians that I had to better myself to be on the same level with. So that was definitely the best one. As far as
Nice.
the worst one goes, I mean, I've done gigs with cover bands for the last 6 years. So I can definitely name a few that certainly weren't enjoyable. But you know, as far as the heavy metal stuff goes, I think there was a Crackpot Theory gig I did once. It was my first time trying to do that drum show for the Flippity Floppity Floop album, and the program that I used to play the backing tracks just lasted about 30 seconds, and
Oh,
cut out.
fuck.
Yeah, and you're on stage by yourself, and I tried it again, same thing happened. Tried it again, and I was like, oh fuck, and it was a packed out gig. And the worst part is I talked all this shit about how great it was going to be, and and I hadn't released the album yet, so people don't know what the fuck I was playing, or anything like that. So yeah, that was a hard one.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, man.
Oh, that's brutal. All
Yeah,
right.
certainly. It's definitely the most embarrassed I've been on stage. Tell you that. Well, some of the cover band stuff could probably match that now.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, this is the last part of the show, Smashcroft. This is where you get to plug anything that you've got going on, or make any shout outs to any people around that you want to make shout outs to. Sir, the floor is yours.
Cool. I'll keep this a bit more brief than what I was originally going to do, but basically, I just wanted to say that when I first started out, there were a lot of key people that helped me out, get my foot into the community and all that sort of thing, helped me get my start. First and foremost, I just need a shout out to Andy Young, who worked at a music shop at the time, and basically called Mango Music, and they had an incentive where local bands could bring their albums in and they would sell them on their behalf. So that was when I first started Crackpot Theory in 2007. I think I wrote like 6 or 7 albums in about 2 years. And poor old Andy had to have all these fucking Crackpot Theory albums in his shop. And but it was very supportive from him. Another person is Murray Shaw from Slave Collective. Another person that helped get Crackpot Theory out there and helped me network with people, and he got me my first gigs. Another person would be Mike Jackies, who was the first person that sort of understood what I was doing from a musical perspective and introduced me and to a lot of people, and kind of pushed me more towards the heavy metal community. If it wasn't for those guys, I wouldn't be where I am now. So that's really all I wanted to sort of say. As far as the musical journey that I'm on now, people think that since I left the metal community, I've been sort of under the radar, but I'm busier than I've ever been musically, you know. So always looking for something new. My kids are a little bit older now, so I've got a bit more time to spare. I'd love to catch up with some people from the heavy metal days, you know, of course. And for those that were around, I'm always going to cherish those memories. And I remember all those gigs, and it was probably one of the best time of my life, really. Got to see the country. I got to see a lot of bands. And yeah, just anyone who remembers or who was involved at the time, you know, just I just want you to know that I really, really appreciated it.
Fuck yeah. Quick side note. I'm still rocking those two Zilbels, the 6-inch over here,
Oh,
and then it's still rocking those, bro. Fucking making good use of the more of the 9-inch than the 6-inch, but yeah, still rocking those. So fucking.
That's good to see, man. I love the kit.
Oh,
I
well,
have to
thank you,
say,
bro.
it's so swish, and you keep your cymbals so well maintained. How do you do it?
I clean them every, probably once a year, once or twice a year. I'll give them a clean.
Oh,
But I'm also very precious because of, as you know, how much those fucking things have cost me. So I'm very precious
yeah.
about them. Very precious about them. All right. Well, Danile Ashcroft, Smashcroft. It has been fucking awesome getting to chat with you, bro. Thank you so much for being on my show.
Likewise. Oh, thank you, Ricky. Hey, it is so great to see you again after all these years.
All these
Yeah.
years. Fuck. We're getting
All
old
these
now,
years, man.
son.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for watching. It has been the Drop Clutch with me, Ricky V. This is episode 8. Another a couple more planned coming up this week that I'm really fucking excited about. So keep an eye out for those. Thank you for watching.